Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. The US has a new president. After a tumultuous post-election season, the actual transfer of power from now former President Trump to Joe Biden went off without a hitch. Having assumed power at noon Eastern, the president didn't take long before getting to work, putting into force a raft of new measures, rowing back on the policies of the Trump administration. So in this video, we'll run through exactly the changes that Biden made, the vast amount of executive orders he signed, and above all, what it means for America and the world going forward. If you like our videos, then make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. If you want more from us, then you can check out our other channels, including TLDR Daily, where every weekday we release a daily briefing at midday Eastern. Today's episode includes a discussion about what Biden did to the Oval Office on his first day in the White House, including the removal of Trump's Diet Coke button. A link to TLDR Daily can be found in the description. The speed at which Biden has moved cannot be understated. Only two recent presidents have signed executive orders on their first day in office, with both signing just one. Biden signed 15 executive orders and 2 directives. For further context, according to data from the American Presidency Project, while Biden signed 15 executive orders in less than 24 hours, after 2 weeks George W. Bush had signed just 2, Clinton 3, Trump 8 and Obama 9. But enough statistics. What did Biden actually sign into effect? In light of the continuing pandemic, the president ordered that the heads of the executive departments and agencies immediately take action to require compliance with the CDC guidelines, notably requiring the use of masks and social distancing in all federal buildings and by all federal employees and contractors. On top of that, a new office will be established to coordinate the response to the pandemic. The position of coordinator of the COVID response and counselor to the president will also be created, whose job it will be to coordinate federal government level efforts to produce and distribute the necessary supplies, as well as rapidly expanding testing for the virus. In addition to this domestic pandemic response, following the US's withdrawal from the World Health Organization in May 2020, Biden's ordered the government to rejoin, in a move welcomed by the UN Secretary General, who said it was absolutely critical for a more coordinated global response. While not technically announced on the first day, Anthony Fauci has also announced that the US will sign up to the WHO's COVAX program in order to advance multilateral efforts to halt the spread of the coronavirus. Alongside those measures, Biden is set to push for a vastly accelerated rollout of the vaccine, with the plan being to give 100 million vaccines by the end of April, as well as reopen schools within 100 days. The Defense Production Act will also be activated to produce personal protective equipment such as N95 masks, coronavirus tests, and vaccine syringes. Vaccine syringes in particular, while seemingly mundane, they're just syringes, are actually vitally important. The use of low dead volume syringes allows for 6 rather than the standard 5 doses to be extracted from each vial of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, allowing for a much quicker and more efficient rollout. Let's talk about travel. Under President Trump, a series of executive orders and presidential proclamations came into effect, effectively banning individuals from predominantly Muslim countries from entering the United States. Biden immediately reversed that policy, issuing his own presidential proclamation revoking Trump's orders and ordering the resumption of visa processing for the countries affected. In another example of immediately rolling back on key Trump policies, President Biden immediately terminated the national emergency that Trump declared with respect to the border with Mexico, going on to direct the pausing of construction work on the border wall as soon as possible to, among other objectives, assess the legality of how funding was obtained. US Customs and Border Protection have since said that over $15 billion was committed to just over 700 miles of the border. With regard to environmental concerns, Biden had committed to rejoining the Paris Climate Accord on his first day, and keeping with his word, he did just that, marking a truly sharp contrast, and in the words of the FT, a return to the multilateral approach. John Kerry, the presidential envoy for climate change, said that the move would restore America's credibility and commitment, setting a floor, not a ceiling, for our climate leadership. Working together, the world must and will raise ambition. It's time to get to work. The road to Glasgow begins here. Glasgow there being a reference to COP26, the next UN climate conference being held in Scotland, a strong indication that this will be the first in a raft of environmental measures taken by the Biden administration in the run-up to the conference. It must also be noted that rejoining the agreement isn't immediate. Rather, only in 30 days' time will the US actually be party to the agreement once more, but that's only really a technicality. The president also revoked the presidential permit granted for the Keystone XL pipeline, the pipeline spanning nearly 1,200 miles from Alberta in Canada down to Nebraska, that was set to carry some 830,000 barrels of oil each day. The rationale being that this new pipeline would reduce dependency on oil supplies from the Middle East, as well as lowering prices for consumers. While the pipeline was initially approved all the way back in March 2010 by the Canadian National Energy Board, then US President Barack Obama refused to issue the necessary presidential permit on advice from the Environmental Protection Agency. Obama at the time highlighted that the pipeline would not achieve its stated aims. Notably, it wouldn't lower prices, it wouldn't create long-term jobs, and it wouldn't affect energy dependence. Trump, however, issued the necessary permits within days of assuming office, in spite of environmental concerns, something that Biden has now revoked. On the deportations front, Biden has ordered a wide-scale review of deportation priorities. No longer will all 11 million people living illegally in the US be considered priorities, with assessments returning back to the principles of national security and public safety. On the same line of thinking, Biden has ordered the preservation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which protected those who arrived in the US as children from deportation. Trump had ordered the program to be terminated in 2017, but following a legal challenge, the Supreme Court ruled that it must be kept in place due to failures in the termination program. Biden has further called for Congress to give DACA recipients permanent legal status, something that would affect some 700,000 people. Foreclosures and evictions have all been delayed until at least the end of March. Federal student loan payments are also set to be delayed until at least the end of September. In an attempt to tackle the revolving door between politicians and lobbyists, Biden has issued new ethics rules, which would explicitly prohibit any official that leaves the administration from lobbying the White House until the end of Biden's duration in office, and for those who leave the White House towards the end, they'd be prohibited for at least a further 2 years. Reversing another Trump policy, Biden cancelled the plan to exclude those in the country illegally from being counted in the next census, arguing that at no point since our nation's foundation has a person's immigration status alone served as a basis for excluding that person from the total population count used in appointment. In between signing 15 executive orders, Biden managed to secure Senate approval for his Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, the first female director, who was overwhelmingly backed in an 84-10 vote in the Senate. Overall though, what do you think? Do you agree with Biden's first day policies? Is he setting off on the right foot, and where should he go next? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Then you can also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our videos when they're posted. Special thanks to all of these wonderful people who already back us on Patreon. And if you sign up, then you too could see your name at the end of videos.